Welcome to the Your Money Hour podcast. I am your host, Dakota Grady. I want to say thank y'all for joining me tonight. I have a special guest. His name is Dr. William Arnold. I met Dr. Arnold. We're a friend of ours, a mutual friend, and Sean Thompson. If you haven't heard the interview with Sean, check it out. But today it's about talking about Dr. Arnold. So before we get started, thank you all for joining us. And just a little background on him. Dr. Arnold was wrongly accused of a crime that he didn't commit. So I'm going to let him share a story, tell us about what happened to you, who you are, and just about your story. Go ahead. You got the floor.
Okay, man. Well, I want to thank you just for giving me this opportunity today to be able to share my story with you, with your audience. Also, want to thank Sean Thompson just for connecting us together. Who can create these types of for you? And I think that always be looking for those types of opportunities to connect people who can do things that you can't, but who can allow a broader audience, who can create opportunities for each other, man. It's important that we create opportunities for ourselves and not wait for somebody else to do it. So with that said, as you stated earlier, my story is about being wrongfully accused. I was living in Nashville, Tennessee. I'd done all the things that they say we're supposed to do from the standpoint of the American dream, going to college, graduated, joined the right organizations, as they say, got a career that I was passionate about, and was giving back to my community, was serving on different boards, doing a number of different things to make certain that I was planting those seeds so that a tree could be formed that'll provide shade and permanence for the next generation. I was volunteering for an organization in Nashville, well-known organization actually, and I was a member of the alumni chapter of my college fraternity. We actually had a partnership with this organization. So as a leader in the organization and in an effort to model what we're supposed to do, I became involved with this other organization as a volunteer. The person with whom I was matched or assigned to created a story that said that I've been doing some horrible things to him. I was sued, first of all, for $3.5 million, I, as well as the other organization. And then later on, a couple of months after that, this happened back in 2011, I was then indicted. A sealed indictment was passed. I had to turn myself in. I had to go through that whole process of getting fingerprinted, getting mugshotted, even having my DNA put into the system. And I spent a night in jail. Then I had to post a bail of $10,000 because there was a $100,000 bond. And then I spent the next 2 years fighting for my freedom. That meant a lot of back and forth meetings with attorneys, going back and forth to court, things that, you know, as a professional male who had done, as they say, the right things, I'd never imagined doing. In 2013, I had a 5-day trial in Nashville, Tennessee. And on that Friday, the jury found me guilty after 7.5 hours of deliberation of all 6 charges. But as soon as that happened, the judge instantly acquitted me of 2 of them. Because according to the accuser's testimony, the judge said that those things were physically impossible to have happened. So the only evidence against me was my accuser's testimony. There was no evidence against me other than this person who we knew from day one was suing me. And I also have to always mention this to folks, is that the irony of my trial is that I was on trial the same week as George Zimmerman. And we're all familiar with George Zimmerman and the Trayvon Martin case, and that, you know, the Zimmerman pursued, stalked, essentially hunted this young brother down and killed him. George Zimmerman and I were both on trial that Monday, July 9th, 2013. And on that Friday, I was found guilty. And George Zimmerman, who had killed Trayvon Martin, went home, and he was found not guilty. So it's always interesting just to see how the criminal justice system tends to see and view things. Uh, so that happened on Friday the 13th, July 13th. I was then sentenced to 25 years, though the district attorney sought 83 years, and the judge chose to run the sentences for each charge concurrently. So I was to serve 25 years. So I went into this process, Dakota, knowing that either I had to be in prison until I was going to be 66 years old, because at this time I was 41, or I had to continue to fight, man. I had to have that blind faith in God that God was going to turn this situation around. And so that's what I did. I mean, through faith, through the love of family, through the support of friends, I continued to fight. So my first appeal happened in January of 2014, and it was shot down. The appellate court said no. That was a direct appeal. We then appealed that to the Supreme Court. They said no. And I spent 6 years and 9 months in prison. It was in February of this year, February 5th, that the state appellate court, state of Tennessee, overturned my conviction. And they did it in a 70-page opinion or decision where they claim certain things as ineffective assistance of counsel, that the district attorneys made improper comments, what would normally be called prosecutorial misconduct, and that a judge in a pretrial hearing did not rule correctly, and as a result, it handicapped us from being able to adequately defend myself. But in the end, I spent 6 years, 9 months, as I said. I was released on April 16th, 2020. So what's today, the 17th? So just yesterday, I marked 7 months of being free. So that's pretty much the story in a nutshell. As I said, it was constantly about faith, family, and friends, and keeping your head, man, keeping your head. Yeah.
Wow. It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me,
If I hadn't lived it, I wouldn't believe it myself. But I got to give all glory to God.
so talk about that, because how did you hold on? Like, how did your faith, talk about your faith, because this is real world stuff. It's not just hoodoo voodoo. Like, talk about your faith. How did you go through that? I mean, did you pray? Did you read the Bible? I heard that God talks to.
It was about getting into a routine, if you will, and that routine was constantly focusing on the moment. Um, Eastern traditions will call it mindfulness. Some people will call it a walk with God. You can call it so many things, but it was being able to lock into this space where I was going to always say, I'm going to control what I can control. I cannot control how other inmates act. I cannot control what the courts do. I cannot control what the guards do, but I can control what I think, what I say, and how I respond. So after my first appeal was denied, a friend sent me a copy of this book called No Mud, No Lotus. And the idea of it is the art of transforming suffering, how to transform suffering. So it wasn't about being just happy, but it was about transforming suffering and understanding that happiness will end and suffering will begin, but you can also do away with suffering by focusing on the moment, by constantly living in the moment, focusing on your breathing, focusing on how you respond to things, not being anxious, not being impatient, and just taking each day one day at a time. I mean, that's how it's given to us, Dakota. We get these days one day at a time. They don't come to us 7 days or a month, but we may read it on a calendar. You get it one second, 1 minute, 1 hour at a time, and being in that time and making certain that you are making the most of that time. So it was about reading. It was about gosh, having a lot of real deep conversations with some folks with whom I may never have conversations with again, because unfortunately, some of the friends, actual friends that I made in prison, are guys who never going to come home. But it was being able to talk to people and just to value being in the moment and what that really felt like, because so many times we're really thinking unconsciously about the past or about the future, and we're never right here and making the most of that right here. And so for 6 years and 9 months, I had to essentially think myself, pray myself, will myself into being in the moment, into being in the moment, and not uh, focusing on, Lord, this isn't gonna happen, and just being faithful that God is gonna take care of this. I mean, I knew it came to this point that, whew, God is gonna take care of it. And if I just wake up every day and show up, I know He's gonna show out. And sure enough, He did, man. He did in a major way. You know,
Hmm. I've never been to jail, so I don't know that feeling. It's like, man, to be taking your
yeah,
freedom taken away from you, and you didn't do anything wrong. It's like, man, how do you
yeah,
survive? Because honestly,
yeah,
that would be hard for me. Because man, it's just something that I love my freedom. I thank God for being in
yeah.
America.
Oh yeah,
Not
oh yeah.
issues,
And I
but
love mine. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's like, what?
Yeah,
How can you take somebody's freedom
yeah,
away, know what's wrong, and sleep at night? How do you do that? How do people do that? Tell me, like,
yeah.
because how do you
And
do that?
and you know, it's bananas because I don't think I sent you or the video of what the district attorney did in my case. And one of the reasons that my case was overturned was that in closing arguments, the district attorneys did this masterful thing, and I have to call it masterful, in that in lieu of making me innocent or showing that I was innocent or guilty, they made me unlikable. Unlikable because I was an African American male who wore a suit, who was articulate, or as they put it, spoke the King's English, and who had achieved degrees. So it was this idea of, he's too good to be true. This is not what America has shown us, has sold us on what an African American man should be. He shouldn't have come to court prepared. He shouldn't have come to court clean cut. He shouldn't have come to court being able to articulate what is happening, giving us the story. And because he did this, he's arrogant. He's not a good guy. He's unlikable, and therefore he's dangerous. And the district attorney even got in the witness stand and mocked me in the way I spoke, and in a number of different things. And I don't know, perhaps when you upload this to your listeners or to your viewers, you could even add it. I mean, I can send you the link. It's about a 2-minute long link that I mean, some folks have told me how it sickened them that this person, this African American woman, a district attorney, purposely sought to take my freedom, not by saying that this man is guilty, but this man is bad because he's educated. So there's so many moving parts to the story, man.
I saw the video, so it was now it wasn't good. In terms of, let's talk about this. Let's be open, be candid, be real. We're both black,
Sure.
right? We know how it is in
Yeah.
America as a black man. People may
Sure.
say who aren't black, they may not be understanding how we're profiled, right? For the
Yeah.
most part.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've been behind bars, you've seen it. You're talking about that as if you're talking to somebody who wasn't a black man. How is the system not built for us to basically not succeed? Talk about that.
Um, Man, well, we're talking about a system that's I mean, rooted in counting us out, counting us down. It can start as early as kindergarten, with poorly funded schools, with teachers who don't understand us. You know, so many brothers and even our sisters are routed special ed classes, have someone there to talented, a smart kid could be labeled as sudden you're no longer in the classroom, you're no longer on track for success. You know, in America, we're taught get your education. We're taught this. So entering kindergarten. We often hear these stories, and I've never seen any research on it myself about how prisons are built based on whatever grade test scores there are. But then we're also told this, man, that little boy in the back that's acting up in class, he's going to end up one or two places. We've all heard that. We've all heard that. So the question sometimes just need a little extra help, a little extra guidance, but that's what the system is composed of. And you know, I come from humble beginnings. I'm a country boy from Memphis, Tennessee. But what I think helped set me apart was the exposure to education, the idea that school was taken seriously. Uh, my family stressed that it was important. I went to a high school, probably the best academic public high school at the time. I was on college track. I took college track courses. Um, I was on the other end of the spectrum in that at 8 years old, I was labeled as a gifted kid, and I was in these gifted extracurricular classes, things that exposed me to more than just normal classroom learning. So it allowed me to have that freedom to think outside the box, to be able to articulate myself in a creative way, and just to be able to compete, to not feel uncomfortable in my skin. I was often told, you know, growing up that, hey, you come from kings and queens. You are a beautiful Black child. And, you know, growing up in the 70s and 80s, that was hard because dark skin wasn't a cool thing. And you know, you had to find your way. And so having people to pour into me, to pour positive things in me, to give me those affirmations, having instructors who cared about what I was doing, being exposed to pre-ACT tests, knowing the dates of the ACT test. Those things are important because what it does is it establishes this of young people who look like us, who walk and talk like us, who have shared experiences we have never get that type of nurturing or that exposure. And they're often raised by, you know, it used to be, they called them what, latchkey kids who were raised by television. Now, you know, you're raised by, I guess, the internet, um, whatever you see on your cell phone, and maybe even some television, or just unfortunately negative influences in their neighborhood. So it's about how do we begin to have this paradigm shift and begin to form these cultures, these villages around these young people that encourage them to be the best that they can be, and to think outside the box and want more and do more, but also want to do it legitimately. Because there are unfortunately some folks who want more and are going to do more, but they're not going to do it legitimately. So how do we begin to have that paradigm shift that there's nothing wrong with hard work? There's nothing wrong with studying. There's nothing uncool about being smart. There's nothing uncool about reading, about learning and being inquisitive.
Yes, it's true. Because I grew up in the hood too. I grew up in a low income family. My mom and dad have 7 kids. We were on welfare. So I saw the things
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't want to go through. Like now, I don't want my daughter to go through those kind
Yeah,
of things, but it helped me to be
sure.
who I am today. In terms
Absolutely.
of when you were released,
Mm-hmm.
how did you feel? Take us back there to the point when you
Uh,
realized that you were free again. Talk about that.
I, you know, sometimes it still doesn't seem real, man. It was, uh, gosh, the way it happened was when I was released, it was, whew, I knew that it was going to happen any day. Um, Let me back up and tell you how the process goes. So once the case was overturned, the state of Tennessee had 60 days to decide whether or not they were going to appeal. So 60 days from February 5th, March, COVID hit. So COVID and all the different protocols that were being created, and as we were trying to navigate this new normal, caused my release date to be pushed back 2 weeks. So I knew it was going to happen any day. The day that I was released, the guards came and one of the guards knocked on my door. He said, "Arnold, pack your stuff, but separate your blues." In Tennessee prisons, we wear a blue hospital type shirt, a scrub type shirt, and blue jeans with a stripe on the side. So when he said separate your blues and leave your blues, that's state property. That's their stuff. I wasn't taking that with me. That let me know they were coming to get me. So coming to get me meant because my case had been overturned and I was granted a new trial, I had to be released to the Davidson County, that's Nashville's sheriff's office. So I wasn't going directly home. So two sheriff's deputies came and they picked me up, and I remember leaving, and I just looked over my shoulder as we were leaving because I wanted to look at the prison sign, and I wanted to try and remember this moment. And as I looked at it, I remember asking myself, "What do you feel?" And I felt nothing other than this is behind me now. This is in my past. And so we had this winding road 2-hour trip to Nashville. And when we got there, I found out that I was being released without any type of bond because the district attorney had created this internal unit called the Conviction Review Unit. And the Conviction Review Unit was composed of a number of different legal experts, I'll call them. And they were reviewing cases. And after reviewing my case, the Conviction Review Unit decided that it no longer had any faith in my conviction. So I was released of my own recognizance. I signed a piece of paper. I had to get processed in and wait about 3 or 4 hours. And finally, about 1:30 in the morning, man, I walked out of that prison to my cousin Carla. She lives in Nashville, and gave me this huge hug, and she jumped up and down and screamed. And then I told her, "Hey, look, I need a quarter pound." So yeah, hey man, I had that hamburger. And so that's what those first few hours like.
Dude, that's like awesome, man.
Yeah.
So
That's how I went.
before we close, what can you say? What do you have to say? I know there's a movie about this, right? A movie came out.
Movie, action figure, lunch boxes, all types of stuff, man. Stay tuned.
Wow. So you have the floor.
No, I'm joking.
You have the floor. Like, talk. If you could say anything about your experience to lead people with, talk about it. I mean, you got the floor. I mean, I'm grateful for the opportunity to interview you.
I mean, there was just one, and I always say, and the one thing that always just stands out in my mind is that my first night, because after the judge after I was found guilty, I was taken instantly into custody. About 11:30 on a Friday night. My car was still parked outside from where I parked it that morning for the trial. My home was still just as it was as I left it that morning. My desk at work, I had taken off from work that week thinking, hey, it was going to be, a week trial. I'm going back home, going back to work. Everything was just as it was. So everything's just left stuck. So I was placed in a cell by myself, and there was a Bible in there. And I opened it up because I was panicking. I was losing my mind. I didn't know what was going on. And I don't know if it said something about distress or I don't know what it was, but the scripture that was listed, and I went to it and I focused on constantly, is be anxious for nothing, but in everything through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the Spirit of the Lord, which is beyond all understanding, will comfort your heart and mind. And if I had to leave the audience with anything, it would be that. Don't be anxious. Stay in the moment. Be thankful. God will comfort your heart and your mind. And I promise you, you can get through anything. We hear this cliche. We've heard it so many times that God won't put more on you than you can handle. 6 years and 9 months. And I'm sitting here smiling. And if you'd asked me 9 months ago, did I think this day was coming? Yes. But did I think it'd be coming this soon? I'm still smiling, bro. Looking forward to eating turkey and dressing next week. That's what I can put it, man. That's what I can put it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. How can people connect with you online, website, social media?
I have a website where because what I love to do is once we've done this is to add a link. It's called it's www.justice4williamarnold.com. Again, that's www.justice4williamarnold.com. And there's also like there's a Twitter thing attached to it. Again, I'm still learning all this, man. Whew. So keep me in prayer, and I'll definitely keep you in prayer, brother.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time. This is the Your Money Out podcast. Check out Dr. Arnold's story and connect with him online. Thanks again.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Dakota.